everyone, and welcome to a very special edition that we will be adding on to the Best of the Best webinar. We have an amazing human being with us. Kurt Wagner is absolutely, bar none, one of my top interviewees ever. I think the world of him. He's amazing. I had the privilege and honor of interviewing him here recently, and I got him to agree to come on the webinar, but schedule conflicts. So we are doing a recorded 20 minutes, and I'm going to put this on for everybody to hear because he is not to be missed. Kurt, thank you so much for coming back again.
Thank you so much for having me again. This is an honor.
Oh, I can't wait. I ordered his books. They're gonna be here tomorrow. I'm like a little kid at Christmas. Open, 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 open. So before we talk about these amazing books, tell everybody who will not hear your podcast just as of yet about you and your backstory a little bit.
Uh, my name is Kurt Warner. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and in regard to the books, but into Victory in Every Fall in particular, I've gone through one of the things that brought me to social work was the suffering I've been through. I have a traumatic brain injury that took about roughly 40% of the neurons in my brain. I lost the left side of my cerebellum. I had to relearn how to walk and talk and function in virtually every way. And I've suffered from obsessive compulsive disorder since as my first memory is obsessive compulsive disorder, so at least five. And I've had just about every manifestation of OCD that one can have, every compulsion, every obsession that just about. And and that plagues me to this day. And I have suffered with bipolar disorder since about age 15, which brought me to the precipice of suicide every year in one way or another because of the severity of the depressions. I would lose anywhere up to 60 pounds a lot of times. In the downs, I would lose my. It'd be very difficult to maintain any kind of sense of self. Uh, and they brought me to as dark a place as I could conceive of in human existence each time. And then the mania would hit, and I would feel like a godlike. I could do anything, and I was very productive, and I had the electricity running through me as I describe it. And that guy Jekyll would get me into all kinds of trouble that Hyde would have to pull out of, and that was my whole existence from a bipolar standpoint in a nutshell. But I've also suffered from very significant back pain that made my legs numb. I couldn't type, even though I had social work jobs where I had to type, and I had to figure out ways to do it around that. I suffered the death of my uh, complete social support network, which was my mom and dad, who, after the brain injury, was like being raised. It was like being brought up again. It was like being born over because I can't do anything. It was like being a child again, and I had to watch as they both passed away within a year, and I lost that connection and support network. So the concept, the book centers around the notion of adversity and finding ways to overcome it, because there are finding the strengths to do so and becoming stronger and more than stronger, better for having encountered the adversity is what I tried to express in the book.
Well, I first want to tell you how sorry I am for the loss of both of your parents. I'm so sorry.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And if you don't mind, let's just talk about just for a minute. First of all, you have overcome so much, and to sit here and look at you today is inspiring beyond measure. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened that caused your brain injury?
Sure. So, as noted, in terms of the OCD started at a very young age. I have a family history of OCD, and it becomes very severe very quickly. It also you tend to hide it from everyone. You don't tell people what you're doing. At least I'll speak for myself. I didn't tell people what I was doing in any way, shape, or form. That led to me having to find escapes. It got too overwhelming every day to deal with that. So I sought in high school. I started to seek ways to get around that, which it was in the form of drinking. That alleviated it. When I was inebriated a little bit, I didn't have to the checking, the counting, the hoarding, the contamination, none of that. I had a lot easier time defying it. Then bipolar disorder hit around 15, and that sent me over the edge. And I started using whatever. I started getting into whatever I doing whatever I could to escape the pain that I was feeling. That brought me into a very negative crowd. I fell into a group who uh, it wasn't ideal to be vulnerable in front of. So so one night I went to I was in the this is the beginning, very beginning of college, first semester of college. I went to a party on Friday night, which is what I always did to escape. It was my escape, and I the met someone there. I was close to someone there. There was long and the short of it is I got put in I got assaulted very badly. My left vertebral artery, which is one of four arteries in the brain, was broken, snapped, and the blood was all the bled on my brain. I was brought down onto a piece of cardboard into a dark basement where all my other people who I hung out with were, and I was left with the artery bleeding onto the brain for no one. I mean, there's no way for me to know for sure, but from anywhere, something like 1 in the morning to 9 in the morning, with after many calls from my family, my dad was able to come and get me because he was finally told I was there. So all that time of the bleeding in the brain, the left side of my cerebellum died because it wasn't getting it nourished. The left vertebral artery was broken. It was bleeding everywhere. I had grand mal seizures. I had vasospasm, which is a spasm of the brain that causes brain damage all over. I was in coma. I woke up and I was given the last rites. I was told, my family were told that I was going to die, and if I didn't die, I would probably be nothing like who I was, and certainly not have any of the capabilities. There was no expectation for me to do anything ever, and I was very fortunate in that I woke up with some capabilities, but I had to relearn everything. I couldn't. My coordination, cerebellum guides coordination. I couldn't reach out in front and grab a cup that was right in front of me. I couldn't walk. I couldn't. I certainly couldn't hit a ball or catch a ball like I used to from an athletic standpoint. So it was from scratch, like being a newborn, and that's why I say it was like being born again with them, with my parents, because it was just I had to learn. I was walked around the yard slowly for many months, until, uh, and it just nightmarish. I was tied to a bed for a long time. I had every tube in the world you could have in you, and I have pictures of it. I look like machines did everything for me for a long time. So
And you had to learn how to even speak again.
yes, my left vertebral from the assault, the left vertebral, I'm sorry, left vertebral. My left vocal cord was broken. I was paralyzed between the assault and the intubation, because if after 40 days of being intubated, it has, and I didn't have any ability to use that. I couldn't. I could communicate, but it was usually by writing things down or speaking. Like I was told, I spoke like the Godfather. It was a very, rasp, and I had every therapy imaginable. After the hospital period, I went to a place called John Hines. I had in Pennsylvania, and I had to relearn everything from scratch. So occupational therapy, speech therapy, cognitive therapy, all kinds of testing, all kinds of things, and my whole life was that. And I don't remember. I mean, memory is a key piece of all. Yeah, and so I don't remember a lot of this. I have, I would argue, the fortune of not remembering, because I do remember a lot of it, but it's in patches, and it's, just horror, uh, between everything that was the tubes, out of everywhere. There were always some kind. I had feeding tubes, I had intubations, I had catheters, I had, so it was overwhelming to say the least.
I'm so sorry for what you went through. It's
I,
nobody should go
I,
through that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But look at you now. Now, look at you. Tell us what you're doing now. Is this why you got to choose the profession that you're in now? Is that why you've chosen to help others and pay it forward?
Absolutely. One of the theses in the books, the major concept, I mean, through the conflict of having to go through, take the brain injury alone, I learned that life was a lot more suffering than I had my high school self or my, before the OCD was always, before the bipolar, I didn't feel that life was just suffering. And then after the bipolar and then the brain injury on top of it, and then um, I forged a very different philosophy and view of life. And the only thing that made sense was my faith and the concept that doing unto others, Matthew 7:12 concept of doing unto others is the notion that I clung to because it was the only thing that remained meaningful to me. If I'm going to have to go through all this, then maybe I could at least make somebody else's less, was the
And
point.
so tell everybody what it is you do today.
I'm a social worker. I'm a therapist, and I work with people from all walks of life who are suffering all manner of things. So there's no it depends on who wants to who comes in, and there's not a lot of things that I won't or am unable to treat in that regard. So before that, I worked a lot in chemical dependency for a very long time, and with addicts who struggled to and uh, uh, I find all of it very meaningful, and I'm very excited about it. I also that's on an individual level, and then the writing is on a my at least my hope for it is on a mass level where I could reach many with which almost all of it in one way or another is geared toward amelioration, improving existence on some level for others.
Right.
So yeah,
Now, let me ask you this. You stated not only in our original podcast that we recorded, but today that your parents were so influential in your healing. And I noticed with our daughter, even from inception, like when she's been in the hospital, we don't leave. There's so many kids in there that nobody's in there with. They're by themselves and they're alone and they don't have visitors. They don't have family come visit them. And I've always explained to our daughter Faith that and she agrees that when you have that drive you will fight harder when you have someone in your corner. Do you agree with that?
absolutely. That propels without my I can't say emphatically enough. Without my mom, I'd be nothing. I'd be no she gave me the drive. She one of the memories in the hospital, my mom didn't want me to be alone a minute in the hospital at all. So uh, this wonderful woman who had social anxiety herself, a great deal of it. That's her family. I'm very much like her family, and that's where a lot of that. Uh, she would put one hard chair on one side of my bed and put another hard chair on the other side of the bed because the hospital would not give her a cot
Hmm.
and she would sit in the one chair and put her legs out in the other and use it as a sort of hammock for a self-made hammock for herself. And I can remember in the middle of the night because they'd wake me up. And I'm not putting them down. They did so much good for me in the hospital. They say, but they'd wake me up constantly during the night, constantly. I never get sleep because they were always squeezing my hands and squeezing my feet and saying, "Here, can and I'd have to get up and do that. And I felt just anger at the time because that's after the TBI, there was just a lot of anger. And I can always remember looking over. And the most uh, fulfilling, the most wonderful moment was when I knew that she was there. And usually the moonlight would be hitting her face and she'd be just sleeping and it would be a comfort. Just, okay, I'm not alone. Existentially, I'm not alone. In that and that's so that support there is just immense because you do it for when I talk about from a suicidal standpoint. She also, how could it, I doing that act would leave her without, and that I couldn't, it was from a, yeah, that it was just so overwhelmingly you, you carry on for her in a way, in a large way. For that's became the mindset. So that link was immense, and I don't know who I'd be without it. I
You
would
know
not
they're
be happy for him.
you know they are both so unbelievably proud of you, right?
I hope so. I hope
I
so.
can
It's
tell you
my
they are. Your
deep
mom and dad
desire.
sound amazing, and I can tell you from a dedicated mom to you, I can tell you that they are very, very impressed and very, very happy.
I appreciate that, and I very much hope they are. Uh, and I hope they're at peace now. Yeah, because they were wonderful people.
Well, so tell us about your books.
Uh, so Victory in Every Fall tries to codify. It's my attempt to codify overcoming impossible odds and with an actual method, which I present in the book. And just to quantify, OCD in National Institute of Mental Health, OCD right now, about 2.3% of the population is affected by OCD, has OCD, 2.8% bipolar. So they're not an overly prevalent, when it comes to severe TBI, you're looking at about 14 out of 100,000 people, so which is far less than obviously the 2.3%. So those three alone, and back pain is common, I understand, in terms of more common and so on and so forth. But those three alone, it seems like an almost impossible odd to if you quantify people who can uh, find ways to make meaningful lives with it becomes less and less statistically. And the concept is what I'm trying to present in the book is that no matter what the odds, no matter what you're up against, a lot of it, and this is where therapy comes in, is the thought process you bring to it, and the way you encounter it, and the way you're conceiving of your suffering, and going through it. It makes a big difference in how you manage it and are able to persevere. And I give uh, a trope of Antaeus of Greek myth, who is a giant, the son of Gaia and Poseidon, who got the god of the sea and the god of the goddess of the earth. When he's thrown to the ground, the reason I use him is because whenever he challenges people to a fight, he loves to fight people. He loves conflict, and when he's challenged, when he gets thrown to the ground, the ground makes him stronger because it's his mom. And the notion that I'm trying to draw from that Greek myth is that we can all become stronger by being thrown to the ground. And I did. And what OCD, I'm for all the torment that OCD renders on me every day to this day. I can name ways that it's helped. I've become stronger from it. I've become better from it by using it to make me. In other words, to give just a quick example there, the perfectionist aspect of OCD enabled me to work with the lack of the memory I had with the TBI. In other words, I couldn't remember 5 minutes before what happened before in the beginning with the TBI. To know, so if I can't remember it, I have to check it again and again and again and again and again. And that's what OCD says, and it capitalizes on things like that. But I also know that I'm a perfectionist, and based on obsessive compulsive, so I use that to say I don't have to check it over and over because I know who I am, and I know that I constantly do things very meticulously. So my memory, yes, I can't remember, but I don't have to check it. OCD, its biggest donation to me, I would argue, is I learned to rebel against unjust authority because it is an unjust authority. It's constantly saying I have to do things that I are just not true. So I rebel and I have to deal with the discomfort of the rebelling, and it abates. And because it's the bully, it's got no so that's a concept with OCD, with bipolar disorder. You're Jekyll and you're Hyde. You're this guy who can do anything, and you're this guy who can do nothing, and sees no meaning in life, and is just tortured in every way, shape, and form. And the identity, there's no identity. When you're two different identities, it becomes almost impossible to have think of yourself as one. And with bipolar disorder, I had to learn to merge, to find a way before I found lithium. But I had to find a way to merge and make one identity who could face the world. And it was a Herculean task, which is ironic because that's who actually ended up killing Antaeus. But it was a Herculean task to do that, and but I learned who I was because there are core things that both persons had, the manic guy and the depressed one. And when it comes to the traumatic brain injury, that I anybody who's read Kafka knows that a lot of his stories open with someone in this absurd circumstance where they have, they're on trial for a crime they didn't commit, or they're a bug in the metamorphosis. He wakes up a bug, and he has to figure out how to navigate this new world. I woke up in exactly that type of Kafkaesque situation, which was I woke up without having in this ridiculous situation wherein I was tied to a bed. I had no way to do it. I had no way to function or anything else, and I had to figure out a way to start building my way out of it. And that existential plight is something that I feel like in one way or another we're all in our lives, and that gave me that gift. And I can go on and on. The learning from our ailments rather than running from our ailments is what I'm trying to portray and to advocate in each of his own way or her own way.
Tell everybody where all of your books are. I'm going to make sure every possible link that comes back to you is out here for everybody on the webinar. Tell everybody where they can get these books, and I will be happy to review them when I get them in my little one hand tomorrow.
Absolutely. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Apple Books, and we're, in short, wherever any retailer of books are sold, all the used and a lot of the used book sites that I always advocate for, you can find it anywhere books are sold in one way or another. And uh, that's Victory in Every Fall, which is about ameliorating others' false idols. How diversion is destroying democracy is a philosophical treatise that discusses what's most it discusses the concept of value in society, and what we and what we tend to focus on in our lives versus what might be most important and what we want to most focus on in our lives. It talks about the bread and circuses, how we're distracted by things that are which not as important to us a lot of time. And lastly, the other book I want to just note is Utopia Realized, which is it's called Utopia Realized in Search of a Just Society, and it's about it's about it's a fiction book and there's a plot to it, but the concept and the base thesis of it is how we can begin to form a more just and society by changing the systems within it. Because we always use antiquated systems that we all say are garbage, that we don't like, but we don't change. But the concept is to use our acumen and our abilities to change them and build something better for us all, so we could be in a better existence society.
I can't wait to read them. I can't thank you enough for making time in your incredibly busy schedule to do this with us.
I can't thank you enough for having me, and I'm so grateful and appreciative for all you do as
Oh,
well.
thank you so much. Everybody go check out the links, click, go get the books, purchase, and support him. He is an amazing individual who is now part of our family, and we thank you so much.
Thank you so much for everything.